Good morning. My first job interview was with an insurance company. I was a Spanish major in college at UVM, and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself, and this insurance company was holding interviews over at the Sheraton, and I thought, what the heck, at least I can go practice some interview skills. So I went to this interview, and it was being held in a room at the hotel, which was a little weird, but I went, and I met with a man named Richard Green. I'll never forget his name. And we started having our interview, and pretty shortly into it, he pulled out a Fredericks of Hollywood ladies' lingerie catalog. And he started asking me my opinion about different articles of ladies' lingerie. And I thought, well, this is weird, and I'm kind of uncomfortable. And so, you know, being polite and whatever, I tried to wrap up the interview as quickly as possible, and I got out of there. And I went home, and I called my mom, and I explained what had happened, and she listened, and then she hung up the phone, and she immediately called the head of HR of this insurance company and really gave them a piece of her mind as a mother of a daughter, of 4 daughters. And the HR director was on the phone to me about 15 minutes later, and I think Mr. Green was called back to wherever he had come from. And I remember at the time being so grateful to my mom that she had advocated on my behalf. And I was kind of angry at myself that I didn't do that for me. And I kept thinking, why didn't I do that? And I realized that the reason I wasn't able to was because of the discomfort I had felt in that situation. Fast forward about 17 years, and our son was born, and he was born 2 months early, so he was a teeny little guy, 3.5 pounds, and he has a heart condition. And so we spent the first 5 weeks of his life sitting vigil beside his incubator in the NICU at the hospital. And we were just waiting for him to get to weigh 5 pounds so that we could go down to Boston Children's Hospital and have a heart procedure. And the day arrived, and we go down to Children's, and I am terrified and feeling more vulnerable than I've ever felt in my life. And the heart procedure went great, and the aftercare went worse than you could ever imagine. At one point, our baby is still unconscious from the anesthesia, and a nurse comes in and unhooks him from all of his heart monitors and hands him to my husband and says, he's hungry, you gotta feed him. Now, premature babies don't know how to suck, swallow, and breathe all at the same time. So my husband and I were feeling like, wow, not sure this is a really good idea because he's very unconscious, but we didn't want to be perceived as parents who didn't feed our kids, so we did what we were told. And Ben ended up choking on the milk, and his heart stopped. He stopped breathing. And so when we finally got a nurse in the room and she hit the code button and all hell broke loose, I was just a puddle, right? I couldn't speak. All I could do was cry. And the hospital actually took my husband and I and put us in a room. And they shut the door and they left us there while they dealt with Ben and got him up to the ICU. And then they just started coming in, person after person, asking us questions about why he was unhooked from the monitors. How did that happen? Did you do that? What happened? And we were feeling like his life is in these people's hands, and so it's probably not a good idea to rock the boat right now. So we're just going to answer their questions and pray that we can get the hell out of here as fast as we can with our baby still alive so that we can get back up to Burlington, back to the hospital. And it was the worst feeling I have ever had in my life. You were helpless, you were voiceless, and you were terrified. I was at my mom's this weekend, and I was sharing with her that I'm going to be telling you this story today. And she got up and she came back into the kitchen, and she said, you know, I was on the board of directors of a nonprofit here in our town in Connecticut, and she said one day I was asking a lot of questions at a board meeting, and clearly my questions were really annoying the board president because he finally slammed his hand on the table. He called her a bitch, and he said, now we understand why your husband doesn't like to come home for dinner at night. Which wasn't true, by the way. I need to defend my dad. But it was intended to belittle and silence my mom, and it worked. She was silent, and nobody at that board table stood up for her. And the next day, a delivery person arrived at my mom's house with an apology, a lame apology in my opinion, and this piece of jewelry. And she said, I've never worn the piece of jewelry, but I keep it just as a reminder because it's important for me to remember when I was silenced. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he redefined the word responsibility for me to be about a person's ability to respond. I'd never heard that before. But it got me thinking about my situation in my first job interview and when we were down at Children's and when my mom was in this board meeting and we had lost our ability to respond. We had lost our voice. And how important it is in those situations for others who have the ability to respond because of the circumstances that they're not in, to do it for others, to speak up for others, to advocate for others, to assume that responsibility. And as I grow older and bolder, I'm taking that responsibility very seriously because of my position in this community, because of the resources and privilege that I have, to really try to find the courage to find my voice, to speak up for others who have lost their ability to do that. So I think you're going to be hearing a lot more from me in the coming months and years. Thank you.